I whirled in time to see the rifle barrel pointed out at the empty space above end of the display case behind me. The rifle fired with utter silence. Only plain, dumb luck had the plaque between me and the rifle. The impact of the bullet on the plaque didn't make the slightest sound as it indented right in front of my eyes, almost knocking it from my magic's grip. I slipped into Sats, but to my frustration, nothing was targetable by the system. Even the gun was shrouded enough to lower my hit chance to 0. I dropped out of the spell and fired the faint blur around the barrel as I sprinted towards the shooter. His bullet smashed silently against the plaque, the tiles around me, and my combat barding as I fired back. My gun, to my horror, was just as silent. In fact, I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. Scotch Tape was equally silent as she fired wildly behind me, as evident by one shot zinging my rump. Fortunately, the low-caliber weapon didn't penetrate. The shimmer leapt into the air and disappeared. I only had a second to guess, and vigilance was dry. Sense and reason said to reload and wait for whatever spell was on me to expire. Be awesome, suggested a little blue Pegasus in my mind. Screw sense and reason. I leapt and slid on my side under the display cases and finished reloading vigilance as I emerged on the far side. From thin air that barrel appeared, but now it had swung down towards me. Vigilance came up as the shooter's motion opened the cloak, enough to see their face. Lancer's face. His rifle pointed at my horn as he stood on his back legs in that freaky zebra stance. My glowing pistol illuminated the calm, certain expression on his face. 11 zebras, you striped bastard. It felt like we'd hit Sats as we pointed our guns at each other. That moment stretched as our eyes locked together, our gazes warring, as if trying to break each other through sheer will before firing. Scotch Tape was under no such spell. The filly had all the marksmanship of me on moonshine while blindfolded, but the rounds striking the cloak made that barrel twitch ever so slightly off my face. My horn flared. Knocking back the bolt of his weapon and ejecting the round, as fast as lightning, he cut the bullet with his teeth and spit it back into the rifle's breech. His hoof slammed the bolt home as the rifle moved back towards my face. He was fast. Damned fast. Fast as when he'd shot us at Brimstone's Fall. This time, I was 20% faster. I leapt at him as the silent rifle flashed right by my ear. If it hadn't been magically silenced, I'd likely have had permanent deafening in that ear. As it was, the heat of the shot burned my cheek as I tackled him like a hoofball player. He flipped and twisted in my grip like an eel, and as we landed in a heap on the floor between the cases, he jerked out of my grip. Refusing to let him get away, my mouth seized the invisible fabric of his cloak and locked down. Vigilance came around, the pistol flashing in eerie silence as I fired right in front of my face. Then the cloak shredded and he jumped free once more. The blue gemstone brooch holding the cloak crackled and died. The tattered remains hung around his striped form as he slung the rifle around his shoulders and jumped back at me, tail coiling around the trigger. Suddenly, sound returned in a rush of Scotch Tape shrieking, Rampage bellowing, Glory zapping, Lacuna's minigun purring, and P-21 yelling, "Blackjack, you idiot, where are you?" "I'm here," I yelled, as I kept Lancer moving for the door out into the atrium. "Blackjack!" Scotch Tape yelled as he disappeared around the corner. She pointed at some boxes of gray explosive I'd seen stacked in a party cake in a memory. More ominous, though, was an egg-shaped, pulsating, multicolored, glowing something strapped to the pile. I didn't know what it did, but I assumed it was probably really, really bad. "Can you disarm it?" I asked. She gave me a look that put my question on par with, "Can you levitate it with your Earth Pony powers?" "Right. Let's get out of here," I shouted as we raced into the atrium and absolute chaos. "Prodded her!" snarled one mare at Rampage as she launched a flying hoof kick that actually dented Rampage's heavy steel barding. "Spurious!" The red-striped pony yelled back, and atop the information counter the two engaged in the most graceful and terrifying display of hoof-to-hoof combat I'd ever seen. If it hadn't been so obvious that they were trying to crush each other under hoof, I'd have thought that they were dancing. The scariest damn bit of dancing I'd ever seen. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to enjoy the sight. As a zebra overhead, using the balcony for cover, opened fire on Scotch Tape and me, while her comrade kept sniping at the weaving and beaming glory. I shielded Scotch as we raced across to where P-21 was loading another grenade into Persuasion. "We need to get out of here. There's a bomb in there," I said as I pointed to the rock exhibit. His eyes went round before he fired a grenade towards the two on the second floor. To my shock and amazement, one of the zebra shot the projectile as it dropped towards their cover, making it detonate uncomfortably close to Glory. That was not fair. Unfortunately, all of us were getting out the one exit would be particularly difficult given that Lacuna was blocking it with her spell shield and minigun. The two zebras pressing were so fast that by the time the gun started firing, they were already out of the line of fire. She couldn't strafe without risking us all, so was having her use her magic arrows to keep the zebras hoof fighters off of her. If her magic was anything like mine, though, I doubted she had an unlimited supply. Worse, her shield was protecting her from the snipers, but zebra hooves seemed quite capable of passing through it. "Unfortunately, I don't think that they're keen on letting us out first," P-21 said dryly. Then he blinked and reached into his pocket, drawing out a weapon that made my heart quiver. The sword was a thing of beauty, deadly art. As my magic lifted it, I immediately wanted to try it out on those zebra hoof-to-hoof specialists. Hell, I wanted to go back to the arena and give Psycho Shy a rematch. "Blackjack?" P-21 said as he looked at me in worry. "Nothing. Just a sweet sword." I grinned. "You go ahead and take care of the bomb. I'll take care of the rest." P-21 stuck his head out and nearly got it blasted off for his trouble by the sniper on the balcony. I looked at him and shielded him with my body and barring. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. And together we charged back across the atrium. The zebra rounds were enchanted to electrocute, and when one hit me, I nearly fell on my face as my muscles jerked for a few seconds. We reached the stairs, and I used them for some cover while P-21 disappeared into the Rocks of Equestria exhibit. I charged my way up the stairs, readying my sword. The balcony ran in an L, and all I had to do was get around the bend and I'd have a clear shot at their cover. Then, everything was silent. I dropped to my face and saw a hole blow in the wall ahead of me. Without looking behind me, I rolled to the left. A second hole appeared. I rolled back to the right. A third hole appeared. I jumped to my hooves. A fourth hole appeared right against the second. "Ah, yeah!" The little blue pony crowed in my head as I looked over my shoulder with a grin at Lancer. The zebra stared at me as he hung out of a door behind me, left eyelid twitching a little in shock. Then I entered Sats and my horn unloaded a rapid-fire barrage of magic bullets right in his face. Unfortunately, he was one tough, quick zebra. His face and chest bleeding, he disappeared back around the corner. I charged after him, bellowing silently. It was the thought that counted, damn it. Then I froze in the doorway, sweeping the security office before me with my mutated gaze. There was a large terminal over a bank of monitors. I took in 2 steps forward in that silence. There was a light on the floor, right next to me, in front of it. A light on a small tin. I put a hoof on the disarm button and took another cautious step. Then he shot the mine. The fragmentation mine lifted me off my hooves and dropped me into a heap. My pip-buck gave me all kinds of warnings about how my chest was crippled. Really, given the amount of pain I was in, I found the little crying pony icon rather redundant. I fell to my side and managed to sneak out a slightly enervated healing potion before I blacked out completely. I couldn't fall now. I had to press on. I had to find Lancer and cut his striped ass. Then he shoved me over onto my back and pushed the sniper rifle underneath my chin. Goddesses, zebras standing on their hind legs was a freaky sight. He had his hoof nudged against the trigger as he looked down at me with an expression of extreme frustration. Then he tapped a small bat-shaped talisman on the side of his gun. "How did you manage not to set off the mine?" he asked softly. "I'm a light step," I muttered, trying to pull my focus together enough to cut his head off. He looked just a little impressed. "You must be part zebra." The impressed look vanished. "Did you remove the bones of the stars?" he asked softly as blood dripped down his face and chest. Sats was recharging, and even then, as fast as Sats was, he might blow my head off before the first shot, and certainly before the second. And if my horn glowed to seize the sword, I needed an opening. "The rocks. You're here for the rocks?" I groaned and pointed to one of the shuttered windows. "Go outside. Plenty of rocks there. Enjoy." He crushed the barrel against my throat, making my breath rasp. Okay, I had enough chest trauma at the moment that I was rasping already. "Where are they? Where are the bones of the stars?" I coughed, glancing at the door and getting another shove with his gun. "Why do you care?" Sakashi said, but the name had a galvanizing effect on the buck as his eyes bugged out and he spat out something forceful in zebra. I didn't have a clue what he actually said, but I bet it was dirty. "She's dead. They must all be dead." "I bet that's what you told your boss, bastard." Suddenly, I had a bad feeling. "She is dead. She told me before she died that the stars are not all evil." She was correct. The stars have power for any pony who dares. He chuckled darkly, obviously relieved to hear of her passing. "Clearly they work through you. You guided me to my target, and you are here now when we discovered that the bones once lay here." "I don't know what you're talking about," I said as I glared up at him. "We came here to get out of the rain. That's all." His eyes narrowed. "I don't believe in coincidences or loose ends." I saw the shadow and smirked. "Do you believe in glory?" An emerald beam struck Lancer in the chest. He fell back, and I pushed the barrel of his gun aside as it fired and blasted a hole 6 inches from my neck. Instantly, the world was reduced to a single ringing squeeze as my left ear exploded in pain. I flopped in rather unawesome fashion as my magic struggled to grab the sword. Bleeding and burning, Lancer hooked the rifle sling in his hoof, threw the gun over his head, and raced out with glory blasting at his fleeing backside. One shot struck the terminal, which sparked and sent the monitors flickering. "Please, don't need a Hydra. Please don't need a Hydra," Glory chanted as she rolled me onto my back and quickly pulled out my armored vest. "It doesn't look like anything penetrated too deep," she said in relief. "Just some broken ribs and contusions. Thank goodness for security's armor." She started to pass me some piss-weak healing potions, carefully working towards stronger and fresher potions. My ear thankfully recovered with enough application of magic. Ah, sweet Celestia. Did I love healing potions?